Good morning, Eddie. Firstly, Sven Botman, who came off in the second half of the win over Chelsea. And you mentioned after the game that he'd felt a bit of discomfort in his knee, I think, at half-time. How is he, and is there a new injury?
Yeah, it was a knock, actually. So I think he sort of got a bang on his knee, but it was sore. So, we're not sure about Sven's availability for the weekend. We'll give him every chance to be fit. Don't think it's a serious injury.
I think that's something that fans would want to hear, because given his recent history with knee injuries, some had been concerned that maybe there was another problem with the ACL, but that's not the case.
No, that's not the case at all. And I think he's been unlucky. The ACL was the ACL, obviously. I think the first injury he had came from a knock as well, which ended up being a really minor operation. But you're going to get knocks and bangs and bruises in the position that he plays. This is a similar type thing. I think he's just been really unlucky on the last two occasions.
What about Kieran Trippier and Joe Willock, who were unavailable last weekend? We're close to the end of the season now, but could they return?
Kieran, I don't think so for this weekend. But again, not a big injury, very minor calf problem. And Joe Willock probably will leave the door open for him. I think there's a slight chance.
It doesn't take many injuries, does it, for your squad to look a bit stretched and a bit thin? You had two goalkeepers on the bench against Chelsea, an academy forward who has been part of your squad. But I think that's the point, isn't it? You're light, but it's not a new observation. Yeah,
we're light. I think obviously January played a part in that. We lost two players from the squad. I think we've done really well this season to manage a small squad. I think our injury record this season's been very good, in part due to having less games. But we've managed to keep the majority of the players fit. You're always going to get one or two. But I think we're in the position with our squad where if you get, and sometimes that can happen, you get a run of injuries and it can look thin very quickly. So fingers crossed we can maintain our strength till the end of the season.
And in terms of the top five, well, you are close to confirming your place in there and Champions League football, but I suppose your message now, 2 matches to play, other teams playing tonight as well on Friday, that it's not done yet. No,
it's not done, and I think the picture can change game to game, and I think that's what we've got to be really focused on, is just our next game and trying to win it, which we will do, and we have done this week. I think the preparation's been good, the focus has been there from the players. I think the outside noise will always be swayed by how you've done, and it's positive, but nothing's achieved until it's achieved. So we have to be really single-minded in that and not get distracted.
And it's Arsenal away from home, a place where you've won already this season, and you've beaten them 3 times. Newcastle's record in the modern era is probably not very good against Arsenal until the last couple of seasons. But again, does that show the progress you've made and how good you've been that you can beat a strong Arsenal team, currently second, on 3 occasions already?
Yeah, I think it bodes well for us. I think these games we've had against Arsenal this year have been very difficult games. They've been really evenly poised. I think we've come out on the right side of them, but the games themselves have been really tight and really difficult, as we knew they would be. And the home game was decided by a brilliant goal from Alex, and the cup games, that they're always different games. There's a different feel to them. We're pleased with how we performed, but we know that if our standards had dropped a really small amount, Arsenal would have capitalised on that. So I think we go into the game with confidence from the previous games, but with a realisation we need to perform at our best, as we have done against them.
Thanks, Rizzo. Keith? Andy?
Morning, Eddie. Check the team's fitness standard question from me. How are you feeling? Has the fitness upgraded to playing against the under-10s, the under-11s, under-12s this week or not?
No, there's been no small-sided against any of the academy teams, which is a disappointment for me. I've been in the park, though, with my sons, and I'm very rusty. Let's put it that way.
I think you can be excused on that front. Just before we come on to the football, there was a clip doing the rounds on social media this week of an identical goal celebration between you and JT against Chelsea. I think it was the Bruno goal. Have you seen this? I mean, it was perfectly in sync. And is this level of choreography, does it come from spending so much time together?
I haven't seen it. I probably would like to, seeing as it's Sounds quite good. No, that was spontaneous. That's not planned. That's not. We don't spend time with each other, which I don't think will surprise you that we're not choreographing our celebrations. But they're nice moments. Actually, they're nice moments to share with all the staff. Goals are such amazing things. It's amazing. It gives you an amazing feeling when you on the pitch and you score them. Not that I did that very often, but equally, I think when you're watching from the sidelines. You're feeling every emotion that everyone else feels, so it's a nice release of that emotion.
Just on the football, on Sven, I know it's only a knock to him, thankfully, but he's had a tough 10 to 13 months, hasn't he, in terms of the injuries, the repetitions, everything. How is he doing? Because even a little knock like this must be just super frustrating if it did even rule him out of another game. Yeah,
I think that there is that feeling, I think I can sense from him that he's frustrated, but I've been there majority of the second half of my career where you're getting disappointments, things are coming at you and you can't necessarily control them. That's the nature of the sport. Sometimes you'll have an idea where an injury comes from. Sometimes it will just come out of the blue and there's nothing you can do about it. And I think Sven's been really unfortunate the last two occasions. There's absolutely nothing you can do. It's part of his occupation. He's brave. He's a wholehearted player, which he needs to be in his position. And naturally, you're going to come out on the wrong side of those challenges sometimes. And most important thing, there's no long-term damage because he's such an important player for us. He's and you've seen every time he's played this season, the contribution that he's given the team. You go back to the Champions League season for us, he was absolutely immense. And we certainly missed him last year.
I was looking at the fixtures, the results from this season. Newcastle have one of the best records in the so-called big games this season. Why do you think that is? And is that one of the elements in this squad that you're most proud of, that mentality in the big games?
And it's certainly something we needed to improve. I think naturally, the more big games you can play, the more you get used to those atmospheres, the feeling around the games, and of course the quality of the games, the better chance you've got of doing well in them. And I think we've gradually built that part of our game up. I think probably the key characteristic is we don't change or overhaul the way we play against anybody. I think that gives you a good chance of then hopefully improving and bridging the gap, which there certainly was for us. But I still feel we've got some way to go. That there's lots of areas of growth and improvement within the team, and we're always trying to find those edges that we need to make us even better.
And Reza just mentioned the record against Arsenal this season. Why do you think Newcastle have almost become Arsenal's kryptonite, albeit across cup and league competitions?
Yeah, I don't look at it like that. I think we've done well in those games, but it's every game's a new game. Even teams who've had a difficult record against ourselves, you've got to look at every game as a new opportunity to change that. And as I've said so many times sat in this seat, you don't underestimate any opponent, full respect to them. But we go into the game trying to win.
Thanks. Thank you. Keith? No. Nisha?
Morning, Eddie. Can we have another update on Joe Linton, please?
Yeah, he's working away behind the scenes. He's typical Joe. He's absolutely foot to the floor to try and get back fit because that's his nature, wants to be involved. But he's not close yet. He's still working his way back.
So do you still expect him not to play again this season?
Yeah, I think the biggest possibility is that we don't see him again this season, then we get him ready for next year.
Your form after the Carabao Cup final has taken you not only on the verge, touching distance of Champions League qualification, but you could also finish second and leapfrog Arsenal if you win on Sunday. Does the opportunity to finish second, does that give you even more motivation? Obviously Champions League is, what you've been aiming for all season.
I think we've got every motivation sort of thrust upon us. We're just trying to win every single game. We've been that way for a long, long time. I think our focus immediately, as soon as one game finishes, goes to the next. The challenge is great against Arsenal. We know the rewards as well. But I don't think you can think about them. I just think you've got to think about the opponent and trying to find a way to win.
The game at Arsenal in the Carabao Cup, that was, a lot of people said afterwards, that was a tactical masterclass from you, the way Shaw moved forward into midfield. Has that been one of your highlights of the season, that game? Because it was an excellent performance that perhaps many hadn't quite expected.
Yeah, football moves so quickly. You move on and but you sort of mentally move on very quickly and then just think about the next games. You very rarely look back to any individual game. I'd say we've had a few highlights this year. I think it's very difficult to pick one. I think if I was, it would be obviously the cup final win because of what that meant. But obviously to get there, we had to navigate some very difficult opponents, Arsenal included. So every game's different. And the thing is, teams evolve very quickly and change. So what worked one week doesn't necessarily work the next. So we'll look purely independently at this game and then pick our plan.
And just finally, you've been nominated for the Premier League's Manager of the Season, Alexander Isak for Player of the Season. Your response to that?
I always think it's nice to be nominated for different things because ultimately it means hopefully you've had a successful season. So personally, very proud to be on that list. And of course, proud for Alex as well. I think he thoroughly deserves it.
Thanks, Nisha. Written guys, we'll add Sundays in at the end as well. We'll start with Damien, please.
Eddie, just going back to something you were talking about earlier, nobody would argue this season that your first team hasn't competed with anyone. You can compete with anyone, you proved that. Is it the depth of the squad perhaps that you need to address as much as anything else as you move on?
Yeah, I think we do have depth. I think it depends on the position really and how much depth. So if you look at our midfield, for example, when everyone's fit, I think we've got 6 top quality midfielders to pick from. That's an area of real strength for us. Maybe in other positions we don't necessarily have that depth that you talk about, and I think it's that balance of the squad and also having adaptable players that can play different positions. They're so important because one player then can cover 3 positions, and that's so important. So maybe we need to look at certain areas of the squad, of course, with the absentees players that we've lost through the last few transfer windows. And just try and get that balance right going into next year.
Thank you. We'll go to Jordan, Lucan and Chris, please.
Morning, Jamal Campbell played his first minutes in midweek. Can you just talk us through his recovery process behind the scenes, how he's been, all the hard work he's put in to get to this point?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a different recovery to Sven, and two recoveries from the same injury are the same. It's all individual. It's all about how your knee reacts to certain situations. Jamal took a little bit longer. He had a couple of, I wouldn't say setbacks, but a couple of moments where he just had to take his time through different phases of his rehab. Through the whole process, though, Jamal has been he's been very level. You know, he hasn't had big sways of emotions. You know, because it can be very easy to fall into a difficult place mentally during a long-term injury. I remember days where Jamal was here at 5 o'clock, in at 9, still here at 5 in the gym. That's the dedication that he's shown. Brilliant professional. And we've missed his voice on the training ground. There's no doubt about that on the training pitch. The standards that he demands of himself and other people. He's a real culture setter for us. So to have him missing has been a big miss, but delighted to have him back and his voice in full flow now on the training pitch.
And you might have injuries in the back line on Sunday, but I suppose he might be reluctant to put Jamal in at the deep end, if you like, given that he's been out for so long. Yeah,
I think we've got to still be relatively careful with Jamal. Yes, he's been training and he's played a game, but I wouldn't say he's necessarily ready to start a game in the Premier League at the moment. I think probably ready to contribute from the bench is probably where he's at the moment.
Thank you. Luke?
You did say you're doing Sundays, didn't you, Lee?
Yes.
Yeah. Can I just ask you about Nick Pope? 2 big saves last week, and we talk about the signings you've made and how important they've been, people like Dan Burr, but Nick Pope must be right up there for you in terms of how important he's been to the team.
Yeah, I think your goalkeeper is always massively important to your team. I think Nick's performed really well lately. I think we've seen a real contribution from him, albeit he hasn't been too busy. If you look back at the Chelsea game, I think there was the 2 moments, I think. Can't think of too many more. And that would be similar to the previous games. I don't think he's overly worked, but when you need him, he's got to deliver. And the save, especially, I think the first one from Cucurella, I thought was a magnificent save. And in part, that was down to his positioning. He wasn't too far across his near post. He's given himself the ability to get to the far post. I thought it was a brilliant save. In a big moment in the game, because in that phase of the game, we weren't totally in control. And your goalkeeper needs to be there when you need him, and Nick has been in recent weeks.
For you, is he one of the best pure goalkeepers? By that I mean
keeping the ball out of the back of the net, saving shots.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds funny to say that about a goalkeeper because that's obviously what they're there to do, but I think he is one of the best shot stoppers that I've had the privilege of working with. I mean, we see it on a daily basis. He has this ability to get his positioning right, as I said, and then he's got long levers, he's got big arms, he's got big legs, and he manages to get touches on balls that maybe some other goalkeepers wouldn't because of his size and his stature. He's also very good from crosses, and we're going to need that coming into this game, and set plays and all the things that Arsenal possess as big strengths. You're going to need your goalkeeper to play well.
Thank you. We'll go to Chris, Lee, and then Ian.
Morning, Eddie. As has been mentioned, you've beaten Arsenal 3 times this season. You're competing with them for second place, but a lot of your players keep getting linked with them. Why do you think that is, and do you find that frustrating that maybe it's seen as that these players need to take another step from Newcastle to Arsenal?
That's a good question, Chris. Yes, I mean, naturally I'm not absorbed in the transfer rumours. I don't go on websites and flick through them and see what's happening this week. But obviously it gets back. And it is a frustration because I don't see why our players are getting linked here, there and everywhere with other clubs. I'd like to think the players are happy here. I'd like to think again that they're seeing us grow and develop into a team that hopefully can compete at the top end of the division. We have no divine right to do that, but I think we're going in the right direction. So, it's a source of frustration, but I don't let it absorb me, really.
And just off the back of that, winning a cup this season and then potentially getting back in the Champions League, things like that, growing not only the profile of the club but the success of it, is that key for to change that sort of narrative as well?
I think regular success, consistent success, all these things help you in the journey that you're on to show to everybody that that's where the club's ambition is. There's no doubt that's what the club's ambition is, but of course, as we've said many times, the ability financially to compete the last few years has been hampered by PSR, but those issues aren't there for the coming window. So I don't see any reason why we can't strengthen, not weaken ourselves.
Okay. Lee Ryder.
Eddie, just on the goalkeepers, I think you've been linked with 2 or 3 this week alone. Can you facilitate a goalkeeper who comes in and demands to be number 1 next season, given Nick Pope's been fantastic? You've got Dubravka here as well.
Cool, you've jumped a few levels there, Lee. As I said, I don't go through the rumours, so I got no idea that we're being linked with goalkeepers. And I don't think it's the right time for me to comment on that. We have some very good goalkeepers at the football club who have done brilliantly this year, so I'd rather celebrate them.
And Jamal Lascelles coming back. Obviously, he's the club captain. Bruno's the team captain. If Jamal's on the pitch, who wears the armband?
Bruno will wear the armband. Bruno's team captain, and I think he's done a brilliant job this year to lead the team. Behind that, Jamal, Kieran, Dan, Jacob Murphy all form part of our leadership group. Very important that they continue to lead as they have done. I think they've set real standards for everyone to follow. But Jamal's club captain, been team captain. In some senses, a lot of the players look at him and as the leader as well. So it's great to have different contributors to that. There can be not one captain amongst a squad of 30 players. It doesn't work. You've got to have leadership from different angles.
Thanks, Lou. Go to Ian, Louise and Craig.
Morning, Eddie.
Morning.
You're talking about big game mentality, and it's unquestioned that Newcastle have improved since you've been here now. Has that been evolution, or can you pinpoint one game where it's only dawned on you that Newcastle can compete regularly with the established top sides?
No, I don't think there's ever one moment. There's no light bulb moment, I think, where you suddenly think you've arrived in any stage. I think it's always a gradual process. And also, you're never confirmed in any position. You have to prove it all the time. So yes, we've done okay this season in certain games against the bigger clubs. There's areas where we need to improve against other teams. But it's in a constant state of flux. It's moving up and down. And we go into this game and we have to prove ourselves all over again. That's very much my mentality. And that will never change.
There's been needle between these two sides in the past. Does needle bring out the best in Newcastle?
Well, I think Needles, your word, I'd say competitive. We've been very competitive, physical, aggressive, and I think we have to be. That when we're at our best, all those qualities run through our performances. We'll be competitive to try and win, and I want to see that motivation run through the team in every game that we play, regardless of the opponent. It has to be there. When it hasn't been there, we haven't performed well, so it's an expectation we must deliver.
Thank you. Louise?
Morning, Eddie. Going back to Chris's question, do you sometimes feel that you're battling sort of outdated image and ideas, assumptions about the North East, because there's a sense that people think, a player, they must want to get out, a terrible place to live, they must want to get to London or Manchester even. And I mean, a whole catalogue of managers, both here and at Sunderland in the past, have said, it's so difficult to get players to come here, their wives don't want to come here, they don't want to stay. I think it was only Rafa Benitez that had a different attitude. I mean, is that still a problem? And getting into the Champions League again, can that really change that narrative?
Yeah, I've not sensed that problem here. I think the biggest issue with the players usually is a combination of factors. Of course, they want to be at a club that is ambitious and moving forward and has a chance to win trophies. And of course, wages is also, and financial terms is a big thing for players. And I think under our PSR constraints, that's been an issue historically. So that will be the thing that we have to satisfy our players, and the market will sort of dictate what that looks like. So it's not like we don't have challenges, but I don't see the area and location and living being one of those challenges. I think it's a beautiful place to live, and I've never had any issue with any player in that respect.
Did it surprise you when you found that it was a good place to live coming from Bournemouth? Was that an issue?
Well, I came here with a lack of knowledge, to be honest. I'd come here as an opposition manager, but I'd never spent time in the area. So there was sort of a lot of unknowns for me. Mm-hmm. And I've been pleasantly surprised. My family love it here. I enjoy being here as well. So, I wouldn't say there's been any issue in that respect.
Thank you.
Thanks, Louise.
Pleasure.
Craig?
Morning, Eddie. We haven't asked you about the club's announcement to change the club crest yet. What is your take on it? What's your thoughts?
Well, a surprise, really, because I had no idea myself. Be interested to see, along with everybody else, what that actually looks like. I think I've said many times, whether it's talking about St James's Park or whatever the theme, I'm sort of a great believer in respecting tradition and history, but then you have to try and move forward, and if something needs to be changed for the betterment of the football club, then I'm all for that as well. I think the great thing that I sort of took from it was the collaboration between the supporters. I think that has to be there. I don't think it can be done without their consent.
And just to follow on from the point you made in relation to Louise's question, there's always been this understanding that there's a little bit of a soft salary cap at Newcastle, and you've actually done very well to keep that in place. It's maintained dressing room harmony. Is the time coming now when you've got to sort of break through that ceiling, either with players already here or players coming in?
Oof, that's a good question as well. You're coming at me with a few today. I think it all depends on, from my perspective, which I'm not in control of the finances, but from my perspective, it all depends on the individual case. So I don't think there's a blanket, no, we're not going to break that, or yes, we are. I think it depends on the individual, and if the individual is worth doing that with, then I think you need to consider it and maybe implement it. But you have to be aware that every decision you make has a consequence. So obviously you have to think that through carefully.
Dom Shaw, Kieran and Dom Skur, please.
Hi, Eddie. Just ask about Joe Willock. How do you assess his season?
Yeah, I think Joe will be probably reflecting on his season with a view of frustration, really, just because he's not been fully fit for probably long enough to fully impact the team as he would wish. I think he's had some good performances. I think he's had some really good. I remember the cup game against Arsenal at the Emirates in the first leg. I thought he was outstanding. Several other games where I think he's had really, really good displays. But Joe's game is fundamentally linked to how he feels. He's an athlete. He's a box-to-box, high-intensity, sprinting player. So I think to deliver that, really, you need that run of games to fully be at your very best. And he hasn't had that due to a combination of the team doing well or be it injury. So my wish for Joe is that he has a full pre-season next year, because I think that's so fundamentally important to a player's ability to be robust enough to get through a season, and we see him at his very best.
But your midfield is so strong. Can he get that run of games? Will he get that run of games?
Yeah, of course he can. And the power is always with the player. No midfield or no team is picked before a ball is kicked. It's all down to the players to earn that starting place. Joe's got the ability to do it.
Thank you. Kieran?
Good morning. In a strange way, do you feel you're only getting started here with the work that's ahead of the club?
In what respect?
Obviously, this has been potentially one of Newcastle's best seasons in recent history. Do you still feel, though, that there's more to do for the club to grow, to get to where you wanted to get to?
I think that we've got a lot of areas to grow in. I still feel we're starting at a place where, if you look at the training ground, for example, the training ground has improved dramatically since I've been here. Totally different feel about the place now, but it still has more. I feel it still has more to deliver to be at the very elite level, and that will sort of run through various departments at the club. I feel we're very early stages, and I'm sure the owners and everyone connected with the club in that respect will probably feel the same. The owners really have been here a very short period of time, relatively speaking, in footballing terms. So the race and the sort of ambition to improve is really aggressive here. So I think things will change pretty quickly in the next few years. Obviously, while I'm here in this position, you never know how long you're going to be in the position for. I'll do my very best to make sure the club's moving as quickly as possible.
Thanks, Kieran. Dominic?
Morning, Eddie. Anthony Gordon's got 2 goals and an assist in 3 games against Arsenal this season. When you look at your squad and big game players, is he one of the first that comes to your mind?
Yeah, I think Anthony's sort of got that focus and the ability to raise his game for the big occasion, which is a great thing for any player to have. It's also a challenge to be consistent in every kind of game, and I also think he has the ability to do that as well. So, but he's definitely been exposed to big games in his career. You think of the international stage and the games that he's had with us. Despite him being quite young still in his career, and he's still going through some important years in his development, I think he's got that strength of character to know when he needs to deliver.
How would you assess his season as a whole? It's been maybe a bit more up and down compared to last season, where he was named Player of the Season at the club.
Yeah, I'd say possibly so. I think he's had a lot of difficult challenges thrown at him this year, none more so than the summer he had last year, which was, I think, difficult on the international stage, and probably for the first time in his career, maybe not the first time, second or third time, that he's had to sort of deal with a lot of media speculation, and that's something you can never know how you're going to react to. I'd say on the pitch, we probably haven't seen him at his absolute fluent best consistently enough. He's had some very, very good games, but maybe not had the run of games that he had the previous season. But he's still fundamentally a very important player for us, and he has the ability to be whatever he wants to be at the age that he is. So I can only see great things ahead.